Good morning, fellow traders. How's everybody doing today? It is the 25th of April. Taking a look at my chart here. On Tuesday, coming in at 9:45, 9:47 a.m. Central U.S. time. About an hour and 15 minutes after the U.S. stock market open. Stocks are 11 things again today, up 226 points on the Dow. We're sitting right at 20,990. S&P is up almost 13 points. NASDAQ's up 30 points. Things are looking good so far. Around the world. A lot of stuff to talk about today. I think one of the first things I'd like to share with you before I show you some of the trades and some ideas that I have coming up here is the calendar. Let's just pull it up here a little bit bigger. Consumer confidence did not deliver today. We expected to see 123.7. Previous was 125, and it came up at 120.3. Let me blow that up just a little bit more here for you. But the thing that I want to tell you all is don't forget where we are here. I mean, this is the histogram on Forex Factory for consumer confidence. Even though we came up less than expected, don't forget where we are. I mean, the last one that we had from March was the highest that we've had for a long time. And this one is the second highest. So the news is not as expected. The US dollar definitely did not like that news as we touched right down to our long-term support that I'm going to show you in a moment. And if you're in any Australian currency trades, be aware, 8:30 p.m. Central Time, we got the high-impact news out of Australia coming in. Let's see. Let me flip back here. Where are we? Trump's talking about the wall and Canada and dairy farmers. We were touching on that a little bit yesterday as well. Let me go back over to the charts. I'm going to go right back over to these charts here. Let's see. Can you turn your mic up, please? Anyone else have a trouble hearing? I haven't touched it. I haven't touched my mic for a long time. What do you think? Is it sounding okay? I don't think I messed with the mic volume since I started, unless maybe right here. Good here. Hey, Bernie, how's it going? All right, I turned it up just a little bit, I think. So let's take a look at a couple things. Got so many things to talk to you. I don't even know where to start. But first of all, I'll just show you the closed trades that we had. Anybody get in on this baby? Euro Aussie from last night? I posted the trade just a little bit shy. I got in at 143.50. I think I posted it at 143.60 or so, give or take a little, and closed out on the trade for about 115 pips, 114 pips of profit. Nice one there for sure. Where are we going to go from here? You know, I think this thing could go up to the moon. However, I was a little bit put off with the consolidation of price in the wicks here on the daily chart. This is going way back to last November and December. And to be honest, I was quite happy with that. I expect to see some pullback, possibly pull back into this area of potential support here, 144.40s, but we're up quite a bit now, so I'm happy with it. You know, it's not a bad trade for one day. The trade itself lasted, let's see how long, about 30 day and a half, 35 hours or so. Not too shabby. Euro dollar, this one I did not post as a trade idea, but this one I took in tandem with the Euro Aussie and closed out on that as well for about 49 pips, I think it was. 48 pips. My target on this one, you might remember, I think I talked about this just the other day, yesterday in the morning, I think. My target was to get it back up to these swing highs, which would put us right around 109.20, 109.15. And we got to that area. I was just being a little conservative with my exit. Didn't want to get too greedy. And now we're seeing it push back. You know, today is all about euro strength, of course. Euro is really moving up, and there's just not a lot of resistance on the way from this point up. So before I tell you what I'm thinking of, I just want to show you the trades that I had closed out. Those two were winners. Very nice. Liked it. I was biased dollar yen or euro yen long, but I did not get in those trades. Dollar index was another one I wanted to cover with you before I switch topics here just a little. Not all brokers have the DXY or dollar index on their charting platform, but you can find it pretty easily online. We have this longer term support. I put this line in just a little bit high, coming in at 98.66 and change. And we bounced right down to that level. But here's what's interesting about it, in my opinion. We had this descending line, right? Remember that broken head and shoulders I kept talking about? The next area of possible support isn't coming up all the way down until we get to these wicks right over in this area here that were put in July. 97.62. So, let's see. Fantastic idea. Good. Rick Chi, nice. Morning, Joey. Let's see. I got a message here from Posmaku, P-O-S-M-A-K-U. How to become a premium member. We don't have premium membership anymore. We combined everything into one, so there is no more premium room, but there used to be. So the people who were in there before still have it after their name. But take a look at DXY if you don't mind. I mean, look at this thing. If we break down, I mean, we did just slightly pierce the line. If you look at the 5-minute, we just slightly pierced it. But if we break down on dollar index, which is what it's looking like, what could happen, we really have smooth sailing all the way down to 97.63. So what does that mean to you in your trading, right? What does that mean to you guys? Here's what I think. I think it means that if you have an opportunity to sell the dollar, pending this bounce on the DXY, then we got to pick your pair to go long on. Either it's euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar, selling dollar CAD. Now, the Canadian dollar has some interesting stuff going on, and I know I'm jumping around a little here, but I at least wanted to hit on this. Part of the reason that the Canadian dollar is so weak here, along with the yen, New Zealand, part of the reason that the Canadian dollar right now is so weak, and a lot of you might know this, but if you don't, is that the U.S. is putting tariffs or taxes on lumber coming out of Canada. And the reason is that, along with dairy, like I showed just from Trump there, the Canadian dollar is weakening because of this. Lumber is a huge product in Canada, as is oil. And if the 20% tariff is placed on the lumber, I'm not sure if it already was placed or if it's going to be placed, but that is going to be a huge deficit to the Canadian economy, because they're basically saying, hey, look, we're going to tax stuff coming in from your country so that we use more of the resources here in the U.S. in our country. And that's not good for trade, of course. That cuts back a lot of their sales, basically cuts into their profits. And I believe it's going to be with dairy and with the wood products, which is huge. So on that news, along with crude that's been falling, of course, the Canadian dollar is probably one of the weakest currencies right now. We've been seeing the New Zealand currency be fairly weak in the last few months. And then the yen, of course, is weakening quite a bit. It's basically just risk on in the markets. You know, stock markets are going up. The yen pair is weakening. You know, I think some of the best trades you could be in right now, if you're not already in, are buying like the pound yen, euro yen, and dollar CAD. I don't think would be the best trade. Euro CAD is probably the best cross that you could pick. So like the euro CAD to the upside, euro yen to the upside. So let's go back to the charts here now. So even though we have dollar weakness coming in across the board, you can see DXY here on the hourly, we still have this fairly impulsive move up just because of the weakness of the Canadian dollar. Now, EuroCAD is something that I did trade with y'all before, but I want to pull my chart up again of it. Let's see, where are we? Euro Swiss, Euro New Zealand, EuroCAD. So this is the EuroCAD on the 4-hour and on the daily. And, you know, the million-dollar question is, where do we go from here? So now 148.52, the weekly, and even the monthly. Turning, you know, is this thing overextended? Well, I'll leave that up to you to decide. I mean, this is in the last few days, the last 6 days, the thing's up 700 and some points. So do you get on the train with the EuroCAD to the upside? Do you wait? You know, I guess if I were to give you any of my, you know, personal opinion, I wouldn't be buying it right now. You want some kind of a retrace at least before you get long, and then we might have a change in the market. But the EuroCAD's been a great bang for your buck. You got one of the strongest currencies against the weakest currency. Even PoundCAD has been going to the moon. EuroCAD still pushing up to fresh highs here. So if you're looking to come up with your own trade idea, I think you got to be buying the euro versus other currencies, selling the yen, or selling the Canadian dollar. I think that's what the market's telling us right now. If we take a look over at our commodities, such as gold, I think that gold is going to continue down. I think gold is going to push down, maybe even down to the 1240s. We do have this area that we talked about just the other day, this little wick, just straight up technical support that was put in February on the 27th. That wick is coming in right around 1263. And we haven't been able to get to that level yet. So as far as a conservative trade idea, and you might remember I drew that little zigzag pattern out here on my charts yesterday. I think a conservative trade on this would be to let it break through 1263 to the downside, come back, retest in the zone, and then continue short. You'd be giving up a little bit of profits to wait if you're going to be selling, but I think it's just a little bit too early to be short right now because we do have a fairly strong level of support. We got the price action support on the 4-hour and of course on the hourly, any time frame you look at. And then we also have the support coming in from February at 1263. So 1265 to 1263 80s are some pretty notable support areas. And we're going to have to see if they break or not. That's one of the reasons I'm not in on this trade right now. Crude continues to push down. We're sitting at 49. We talked about this before. I mean, if this rolled down like it did, there was really no support coming in for a while. And we're continuing to break down here just a little bit lower. Sitting at 49, you know, a big psychological number. I still think that crude is going to push down. Crude pushing down is really going to put the nail in the Canadian dollar. So if you're sort of mixed, let me turn this down here a little bit. If you're mixed on anything as far as a trade idea, I think the best thing that you can be doing right now is trying to sell Canadian dollar and buy euro. Let's see. Good here. Yeah, second strongest euro, weakest yen. You got it. So right now I'm flat in the market. Those two trades I had yesterday, last night, the Euro Aussie, I had 1.6 lots. That was 13.79 profit. The Euro Dollar trade, 1.6 lots, was 7.68 profit. So about $1,100 on those two. And I want to give you just a little bit. This is more for the newer traders, but it's for people experienced as well. It's just a little, reminder. As we look back on the markets yesterday and today, try not to make this too difficult. That's one of the things that I try to do my part in teaching anyway. Could you do a lot better with these trades? Could you have bought the euro yen, the pound yen, and the euro dollar, and had more lot size and tripled your account in a week? Sure, but the way that you make it consistent and long term, and the way you don't blow up your accounts, is just taking the most highly likely trades that you can get, and you have to be okay with losing a big chunk of those. You might lose 30%, you might lose 40%, you might lose 45%, you might even lose 50%. But if you keep the risk to reward greater than 1-to-1, you're still going to come ahead. So those are the only two trades that I took since yesterday, and they're both decent winners. Could they have been more? Sure. Could I have traded some other ones that were decent setups, like the euro yen long? Remember I was talking about that yesterday? Sure. But I don't get too greedy, with things here. It just doesn't pay off. So my point of this little ramble for a minute is just to don't make it too difficult. It's good to have a bearing on what's happening with, Theresa May and the Brexit and the French elections. You got to have some fundamental knowledge. And I do use fundamentals a fair amount, like the Canadian dollar I've been just talking about, with the 20% tariff on lumber, with the falling price of crude. You got to know, I think, those things, at least the big stuff. But don't make it too difficult on yourself. Sometimes the easiest and best trade is the one that is the most sort of common sense. I talked about it yesterday with the euro dollar here. Having traded forex for over 10 years, we think this gap is going to fill. The market doesn't like gaps. We all know that, right? We all know that markets don't like gaps. But fundamentally speaking, there just was not enough momentum to dollar strength or euro weakness to pull us down another, almost 100 pips. So I decided to go long. Could have called it a little bit better. Could have got in a little bit lower. But, try not to make it too difficult on yourself. Got to keep the emotions out as much as you can. It's hard to do it, of course. But you got to keep the emotions out as much as you can. Let's see. Euro pound short. Yeah, this one right here. Hey, Alpha, how's it going? The euro pound short trade went good. I closed it out during our live stream when Andrew and I were streaming live on Friday morning. That one closed out at 30 some pips. I put a smaller order on that than I usually use, just for my own account size. Yeah, 0.4 lots, made $176. So that was, that was your trade idea. That's right. I was giving you some props on that yesterday, actually, because that was all you. You called that one very nicely. So I thank you for that. I even said, somebody in the room was telling me to sell euro pound. Started with an A. I forgot the name, but you got it. That was a nice trade idea to the downside. And we were playing off of this area of resistance on the daily. And we had basically almost an exact match. And got out before the weekend. You can see that there. Nice job. Nice job. Very nice. See, we can all learn from each other. We can all learn from each other. Euro pound now, where are we going to go from this point? Man, remember just this last week we were talking about the pound strength and softening of the Brexit. Then it all shifts over to the strength of the euro. And how, based on the French elections, the consensus is now that the euro is going to stay intact, be stronger. So right now I'm going to avoid the euro pound. And here's a good reason to. Again, if you're not using the strength meter here, this is the one that Andrew had coded, the one we all use here at Forex Signals. Sorry about my sniffling here. It's been allergy season. We were out in the woods yesterday, kicking up pollen and stuff like that. If you don't use this, it's a good idea to, or at least some form of this. The euro versus the pound, I think at this point it could rise, but you have two really strong currencies all the way across the board. The whole point of this meter is to try to find the strongest versus the weakest and put them against each other, and then find your pullbacks to re-enter. And then you look at these moving averages here. Andrew can teach us a lot better than I can, but we have the yen that's pushing down the fastest, and we have the euro at the top. Also seeing some nice strength out of the Swiss franc, which I don't personally trade a lot. Andrew put some commentary in here. I think this is when I was sleeping over London session, I believe, looking into buying pound CAD, which should be a nice profitable trade. Pound yen pushing on, definitely a good trade. That's going down. Yeah. USD's bouncing just a little bit. A little bit of a bounce here, 5 minute. So what do we have for now? That's what I always like to come back on. I like to put trades on in real time with you. Hopefully the trade ideas I place are good. Definitely don't take the trades just based on the idea. Check it out on your own first, because we definitely post losers as well as winners. We got the Australian news coming in later on, about 10.5 hours from now. Tomorrow we have a few high impact news releases out of Canada. We got the crude oil inventories, crude oil out of the US. Australian Governor Lowe speaks. And then we have 3 big high impact news releases for the Japanese yen tomorrow night. The policy rate, the policy statement, the outlook report. Still got our hands, full with some high impact news that's going to be coming out as the week goes on. So just getting ramped up for the week. Where do I think DXY is going to go? I think it's going to go south. Would I like it to go up a little bit? Sure. Could have a little pullback here to 98.81. Little pull up and then a push down. That'd make a lot of sense to me on the DXY. Which would mean we'd have a pullback on the euro dollar and then a continued push upwards. Euro dollar, most commonly traded currency pair. I think we're going to push down a ways and then push right up to new highs. How far this little bottom is, 10 pips, 15 pips, really tough to call. This is a pretty decisive trend line going up. We have fibs we could use for that. We have, the top. Over here on the top of my chart, the broker that I'm on right now shows this top, this end of the gap after market open at 109.19. Your broker might show it at 109.10. Some might be 109.25. The brokers are all going to be just a little bit different. Are we going to make a pullback all the way to 108.99, 109? I don't think we're going to make quite that far of a pullback before we continue up. The Euro CAD is still a great trade. Taking that Euro strength against that foolishly weak Canadian dollar right now. But, do you buy at the top or what? Anybody in the Euro CAD right now? This is the 1 minute chart. We're still pushing up to new highs again. It goes against everything I know about trading to be buying this right now. But fundamentally, it looks quite smart. Fundamentally, the best trade idea probably out there. I wouldn't I wouldn't get in on my own, though. I think dollar CAD to the upside is a good trade. If that dollar index does roll down. Take a look to the left on this chart. This is the daily. Dollar CAD's at 136.10. We've taken out this sort of double top that was put in on December 28th of 16 and November 15th of 16. This double top was coming in right around 136. So we're about 10 pips above that. Could this be a little fake out wick? It could be. Could it tumble down? Sure. But as far as, I'm a fan of trading against the trend at times, contrarian trading, especially with divergence and things like that. But fundamentally, I think the Canadian dollar is going to be weakening across the board. So I like this thing to the upside for sure. Now, for those of you watching this stream, trading your own money, trying to learn how to trade, what do you do with it though? Do you just buy it here like the Euro CAD? Do you buy it right on the very tip? I just can't give you an opinion on that. I wouldn't do it. I mean, that's my opinion. But how far is it going to pull back? I mean, it gave us sort of what we wanted already. If you look right over here on the 15-minute time frame, let me just zoom this in real nice and big. We broke out to new highs. We pushed up 40 pips or so, retraced all the way back down to this level of the resistance that became support and now continued up. So it really already did that. So you'd have to wait for something like that to happen again. And if you miss it, you miss it. Big deal. At least you're not losing your shirt. It just goes to show you how weak the Canadian dollar is. Euro dollar's pushing up. Pound dollar's trying to push up. Even the Aussie dollar's trying to push up. And the dollar CAD, total inverse, is still pushing up. Here's the 1 minute on the Euro CAD. And this thing is just to the moon. To the moon with you. So here we have what I'd like to call a quandary, if you will. We have the writing on the wall. If you look at the charts like this, and again, this is just my own strategy. Everybody's a little different. It looks so simple, It really does. I mean, we have Euro strength. We have Canadian weakness. We're watching for dollar weakness to possibly continue. We have a lot of weakness in the yen. We know what to do. We know which way they're going to go. And where traders get into trouble is, for example, on the euro dollar, they'll buy it right at the very top and have the stops too close. Or they won't be patient enough to wait because they feel they're going to miss the train. And my answer to that is don't worry. Missing a trade isn't going to cost you $1. Could you have made a bunch more money? Sure. I think the euro yen is still going to go up higher. 1 minute time frame just for entertainment value. We're sitting at 121.13. But I wouldn't be buying it yet. Even this little pullback, 12 pips. I feel like it's just not enough of a pullback for me. Some solid advice I can give you right now, though, is I wouldn't jump in front of this freight train and try to sell. There's just no fundamental reason I can give you to sell that thing. Stock markets are pushing higher still in the U.S. Dow is at 20,997. So risk is on. Yens are weakening. I think if you want the, how can I say this the best? If you want the ultimate opinion from me, for whatever it's worth, whether you take it or you don't, just my own humble opinion, distill it down into your own knowledge base, make it your own, is that I'm not in any trades right now. Here we're calling the direction of the market. I think pretty confidently here but I'm not in any position to take a trade right now. And if you're one of those traders, and I know there's a lot of you out there, maybe even the majority, I'm not sure, that are, about to click the button and they're like, okay, good. We're thinking Euro strong, CAD weak. I'm going to buy Euro CAD. This thing could push up another 300 pips. Is that going through your mind right now? Are you thinking, man, this thing could go to the moon. I don't want to miss out. I don't think that's the right way to be trading. If you want to jump on, jump on. But I'll tell you what. My own bank account and trading statements show me that I have to do things that are reproducible and consistent. And for example, on this dollar yen right here, if we pull back down to the 15-minute, it's not reproducible for me over hundreds and thousands of trades over months and years to just buy this, right up in front of 111, a big number. There's no pullback. There's no Fibonacci retracement. It's just been going up pretty much straight up for 130 pips here on the 15-minute time frame. Not to mention that we didn't fill the gap all the way. Could it continue to push up another 300 straight? Yeah. You might really take it to the bank, but that's sort of, that gambling thing. I mean, this is a risk. This is a calculated gamble, if you will. So I'll get that little bit of an edge. I'm sure those of you who listened to me over the last, months here know what I'm going to say already, but it's the casino mentality. The casinos make all the money because they got that small edge all the time. They could care less if somebody wins $10,000 in the next 10 minutes because over hours and weeks and months, they're going to make a lot of money with that little 2% to 8% edge. Some games more, some games less, of course. But that's all you need. So right now, when I'm looking at the dollar yen long, or the Euro Aussie long, or the Euro CAD long, I'm thinking, okay, fundamentals are in place. The currency strengths that I'm picking, I think are correct. It looks pretty good. And I go through, all this analysis, top-down analysis from monthly to weekly to daily, looking at the news events. There's no big high-risk news events, at least in the calendar right now, so that's a good thing. I'm not gambling just on a news event here. Stock markets and world indices are showing me that there's risk on in the market, which means weakening of the yen pairs. We got news out of the Eurozone, that's coming out positive for the euro. So there's reasons there to take those trades, but I'm missing the big check mark of technicals. I don't have the ideal entry. Would I love to just get back in the Euro Aussie long or Euro Yen long and just jump in right now? I think there's a lot of upwards potential. A lot of you probably are doing that if I know trading mentality right, and maybe you've been in for a while. But it's just not reproducible for me, so I avoid it. So I just wait a little bit. I mean, it had a couple nice trades, made a couple $1,000 in a day and a half. Been doing that now with you here in this joint room for a month or two. And the results speak, just that consistent income. Not trying to make 10 times of my account this month or anything like that. And remember one of the rules back when we were talking in the free video series back in, I think it was November, the way that I think you should think as a trader, the way that I think in my mind is if you do something that doesn't follow the rules and you have a good result and you make profit, you shouldn't be happy about that because you can't do it again. Or maybe you need to change your rules. Maybe you just have a good, clean breakout strategy. That's usually not the way that I trade, but a lot of people do. Maybe you just have a breakout. We took out the resistance. Let's buy at the top and hope it continues. That's a decent strategy to use. It's just not what I like to do. So don't be foolish to get too overconfident when you make profits for not following your rules. Psychology is such a big part, right? Let's see. Sorry, I haven't looked in the chat a lot. Let's see. Got a private message. Hey, Jason, this might be a stupid question, so I won't mention any names. Why is the stock market doing well and the yen will be weakening? You mentioned this a number of times. So the yen is basically known as a flight to safety currency. So whenever there's risk in the market and people are wanting to gamble and put money in and take chances, the yen pair will become weaker. If you remember when those cruise missiles were fired into Syria, we had unrest in the world. We had, that risk was basically shut off and the yen pairs fell. The yen gets stronger. So basically that's the real simple way to look at it. It's not a catch-all meaning to cover everything, but the more risk that's in the market, the weaker the yen pairs get. And as the risk comes out, let's say there is a bombing or World War III breaks out or some, big world turmoil, say with Korea, for example, North Korea, then we'd see the yen pair strengthen back up again. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Alpha. And Juan Pablo, thank you. Trady Trader. Yeah, NM. KVJ. Yeah, Rich, you got it. Juan Pablo, what leverage do you use and what do you consider a reasonable monthly annual return? That is such a loaded question, but I'm going to just give you my opinion on it like I always do. Take it for what it's worth. The leverage to me shouldn't matter a lot. I have a brokerage account that has 1,000 to 1. I have one that has 500 to 1 and one that has 400 to 1. And I just never use it all, So the only traders that are concerned about leverage are the ones that don't have a lot of money and they want to just max the thing out, right? So it's all about the risk per trade, really. You can risk whatever you want per trade, but 0.25%, half, 1%, 2%, 3%. We're starting to get like a little bit crazy, in my opinion, if you want to be consistent and profitable long term. If you're a gambler and you're trying to turn $500 into 5,000, that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But if you want to reproduce something over and over again, I think you got to be at 0.25%, maybe 1% risk per trade. That's just my humble opinion on things. I think it's fairly doable to get 2 to 5% per month out of a trading account if you're following all the conservative rules. You can have good months, maybe 10, 11, 12, and hopefully your bad months stay to break even to maybe minus 2 or 3%. And you can multiply that any way you want. You can double the lot size. If you're using a trade copier and copying someone else's trades, you can turn it up to 2x or 3x. But just trading flat based on rules, say you got $1,000 in your account. Doesn't matter if it's 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. I think that following the rules of trading, being, somewhat conservative, taking, anywhere from a few to a dozen trades in a week, not scalping, but doing like 15-minute hourly, looking at the longer term type stuff. I think you can do somewhat consistently, 3-4% to 7% a month. You have good months and bad months. It's just my opinion. Everybody's different. Some people are shooting for 30-40% a month, but the traders that have been around the longest, the ones with the track records that show, you look at some of the signal providers over at Simple Trader, the ones that have been around the longest, without using any multiplier or doubling or tripling of their trade size, that's sort of where they're at, 2%, 7% a month, 8%, maybe a 10 or 12 in there once in a while. That's pretty solid. Nice to have some good surprise months in there where you get 15, 20%, but again, I'm just talking as a conservative, treat this like a business long-term type thing. Not as a side business where you're looking to make a ton of money fast. Because trust me, I've been down that road. I won't waste your time, but I've been down that road, I have videos out there where I've taken $300 to $12,000 in a week and showed all the trades. You can do it. you're just going to have a whole ton of times where you don't. You know, you can put your whole account on the line before some Aussie news event and gamble it if you wanted, but yeah. Yeah, Joey, you're right. 5% per month is a great number. Yeah. 3 to 4% average, think that'd be safe. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I won't get too much into psychology here anymore because I get on my soapbox with that, because I think that's the number one problem that traders have is psychology. I think that's the number one problem that they have as a whole. But I'll tell you this. Yeah, I know. We got a little bit of action here, right? Pound's getting some strength here. Pound dollar, pound yen. It's really tough. Let's say you got $10,000, which, you know, by most people's, you know, estimation, that's a nice chunk of money. 10 grand's a nice chunk of money, right? If you're trying to make a few $100 on that every month to put in all the work all the time and not take out profits and try to compound it, that's where people get burned out. You know, even if they do really well, sometimes you just don't have the patience. You know, they just don't have the patience to sit and wait. So you either need to be more aggressive or you need to get more money. And I'll tell you one little tip here. If you can build up a track record for months, maybe even a year or more, and have a decent drawdown, you'll be able to find people that will want you to trade their money. You know, just has to be verifiable. Take a look here. Dollar index pushing down. Didn't quite follow my marks exactly, but it was close, right? I mean, we were close. We'll see what happens as it continues to move forward. Let's take a look at our euro. I don't think this one pulled back much at all, did it? No. This one didn't go as deep, but a little retracement, not quite as deep. The pound, though, is really picking up some steam here. Pound dollar. And you'll find that when you trade, if you watch, you know, multiple pairs like this at a time, you'll find that as the dollar weakens, for example, the euro dollar, Aussie dollar, pound dollar will push upwards. Most of the time, the dollar CAD will push down unless the CAD's totally weak like it is today. And then you'll see the waxing and waning. The euro will catch a bid and push up, push up, push up. And then it might settle for a while. And then the pound will catch a little. And then the Aussie might catch a little. So they all do move in unison, of course, at times. But you see this sort of waxing and waning and the crosses coming into play like the euro pound, the euro Aussie. So even though the euro dollar and pound dollar are pushing up, we still have the dollar CAD pushing up. I mean, man, the CAD sure is weak. Take a look at our buddy, the euro CAD here on the 1 minute. So still pushing up. Where's it going to go? Man. Sky's the limit on this, baby. I mean, I really don't have a set target, which is another reason I'm not in the trade. Got this darn long wick here, and we're coming up on possible resistance here on the other candles. Now, again, I'm looking at the weekly time frame, but they're just, where's the top? I mean, that also gives me a little bit mixed. And, you know, I think if you're trying to learn how to trade, especially if you're newer, I think the best advice that I can give you, and then I'll get off the stream here pretty quick, but the best advice I can give you, the best way to get around, at least the way I think, is just to watch what I'm doing here. You know, I have my biases, but I'm still not in a trade because either I can't find a good target, or I'm not getting the right retracement, or I'm seeing, you know, resistance broken, but it's not retested. I'm just not getting everything to line up. And I try to only take the trades that I can, give the best small edge that I have. And I'm wrong a lot. I think we all know that. But thankfully, profitable most of the time. Yeah, pound CAD is insane, Corpse Crete. You're right. That thing's to the moon. Aussie CAD? Yeah. Aussie CAD is another good pair, but again, we got the weak pair of the Aussie catching a little bit of bid. I think you're better with the euro versus, or the pound versus the CAD, to be honest. Pound CAD to the moon, really. Focus on the process, right on. Can you write a book about forex trading? I'm sure many people would buy it. Yeah. Maybe someday. Someday, maybe. All right, everybody. I'm going to put together a little daily update video that'll come on for the next 4 hours when you log in. And I will be around most of the day today in the chat, actually. Today's my day. Tuesday and Thursdays are my day where I'm here all day. And then I'll be streaming live again tonight at 8 p.m. Central. Make it a great day. Be safe. Choose your trades wisely. And don't forget to jump in the chat. Bounce some ideas of other people. Get that accountability going. Don't be afraid to ask questions you might think are silly. Most people have the same question most of the time. So I will see you later on. Have a good one.